So, Need for Speed Shift is turning 10 this year, and I figured instead of just doing a basic hot lap like all my other hot laps, I'd take the 6.5 minutes or so around the Nürburgring to talk about the game a bit. So I actually picked this up when it was brand new for the Xbox 360, and I roped a buddy into doing it as well because, well, we were both into racing games, and we figured it's something to race online. We'll go through career mode at the same time, we'll bullshit with each other on Xbox Live Party Chat, we'll race online, we'll figure out the winning combinations, we'll kick a bunch of people's asses, which we would go on to do in several other games, and it would be fun. And he ended up snapping his disc about halfway through career mode because the face-off AI in this game, and the AI in general, is just extremely rubber bandy, and he got pile-driven at one point. I think it was at the Laguna Seca Challenge, and he said, fuck it, this is enough, don't want to play this again, took it off his console, snapped the disc, and 10 years later I worked for the company that made the game. So that was an interesting turn of events, but whatever, we'll just roll with it. So before this game came out, it was actually kind of implied that this game would be GTR 3 in a sense, albeit under the Need for Speed banner and with some of the career campaign elements that you'd see in a Forza or Gran Turismo game, and it got a lot of people excited. Now, unfortunately, when the game came out, there were a ton of problems with it. So the first thing we gotta talk about on that subject is input lag. I'm playing this on PC right now. I've got my wheel feeling pretty okay. I'm pretty happy with it. I can turn hot laps at a competitive pace, but on the console back in the day when we played this, playing this with a 360 pad, and from what I've heard about the PS3 version, it was even worse. Oh my god. There was this massive dead zone that you really couldn't get rid of, and there was this almost delay in between the time you'd turn the stick versus the driver would actually turn the steering wheel in the car, and not just the steering wheel but the steering column itself. So you'd always have to drive with this like half-second anticipation for corners, and that's on top of a tire model that, as you can see, is kind of like this hybrid of Grand Prix Legends and R Factor, where you're four-wheel drifting everything. There's a lot of like crazy oversteer moments, there's a lot of like corrections you have to make out of corners. So playing this on a pad just fucking sucked. It really did. The second issue would be the physics explosions, and these were like notorious in this game. This made people take the game back to the store. Basically, if you hit the bump stops in this game, if you bottom the car out, or if you just do something the tires don't really agree with, the car will like hydraulic and shoot off the track. And this is something you can see in YouTube videos that aren't of me driving, because I'm actually trying to look like I know what I'm doing here. But you'll basically go through patches of the track where you're driving it normally, and you've taken the right line, you've done everything right, you've done your job as a driver, and the car will just compress and then start like popping and just shoot off the track. And it really never got fixed. You can dial it out with the setups. Once you figure out the cause of all this like popping and shit, like for me, I figured out it was like a combination of bump stops and low ride height. So you can dial it out in the garage area, but since a lot of the people playing Need for Speed don't ever touch garage areas, they have no idea what the fuck any setup options do, they would have to drive knowing that like at any given time, their car would just start like bouncing on the track and fucking smack the wall at 200 miles an hour. It was retarded. The third issue is that the online racing was just really unbalanced. Like, there was one OP car in every class, and that never got fixed either. So basically, like, it worked the same way as Forza, where you have like this PI system that's not called a PI system because it's not Forza, but whatever, it's the same fucking shit. And people found out that like the four-wheel drive Lamborghini Murcielago was just like heads and tails above everything. Like, you could not keep up with that. Four-wheel drive, a trillion horsepower, even without a tune, it would just stomp everything. So you'd go online and people would just rape you in Lambos, and that was online racing. So this game's $20 on Steam, and the question is, why am I still playing this 10 years later? That's not more of like a personal challenge than anything. This game really kicked my ass back in the day on the 360. Not that I was bad at it, but it was just weird to drive with the pad. So now that I've got that decade of sim experience and a couple of years driving stock cars, I have a new tool set where I can approach this game and say, okay, you know what, maybe it's something in the garage area. Maybe it's something I need to do as a driver, and at the end of the day, it actually was. And you can see through this section, we're actually experiencing, and here as well, mini physics pops that you still can't really iron out, but it's dialed out enough to the point where it's playable, and you can actually have fun with the game now and not just rocket off the track every couple of corners. And in getting the game to that point, you basically get a version of Grand Prix Legends, but with like modern supercars. And I'm not comparing this game to GPL in a sim sense, I'm just saying like the way you drive it is actually pretty similar. You have these like really crazy four-wheel drifts, you have these really aggressive entries where you like send the car sideways and just stomp on the throttle and power out, you know, counter steering. Like it's very, very similar of a driving style to GPL, whereas GPL is obviously like a bit slowed down, a bit more of like a proper simulator. Here you're taking like sectors at like 40k quicker than you'd actually be able to do in the real thing. And again, it's not a sim, it's not perfect. It's like you can actually feel when there's like physics explosions going on, but it's still kind of fun. And we don't really have fun PC driving games anymore. We have either really boring simulators that all have the same 10 GT3 cars and the same 17 tracks, or you have like full-on arcade games like Forza Horizon. And this kind of is like this middle ground where there's still that Forza customization, but it's in that relatively familiar environment. And yeah, there's like still really fucked up shit if you play the vanilla version of this game, which I am. I did the final race of career mode today, and it's like a 5-lap sprint around Brands Hatch, and it took me, like, I completed 22 out of 5 laps just because I kept restarting because of the fucking AI just pile driving me. Like, that shit's still there and it's infuriating, but it's still cool that, like, I can take an FXXK of the Nürburgring, and it still looks really, really good. And not only that, but it drives kind of like this weird resurrection of GPL with supercars. And for 20 bucks, I didn't really think that was a bad deal. Now, we gotta talk DLC. There were 2 console-specific DLC packs that were never released on the PC version for this game. Someone actually found those, they found the files, they ripped them, they converted them for use in the PC version. It's the actual physics, it's the actual cars, the actual tracks if you want the tracks, it's the actual sounds. Someone put them in the PC version. That's what I'm using here. It's a Ferrari FXX part of the Ferrari Racing pack. There's also like a supercar pack with McLaren 12C. Yeah, that's available for the PC version, and it adds like 20 new cars to the game. So, yeah, thanks for coming along. 612. Not bad.